the cultural and social responses to futurism. What do we mean by futurism is the rise of science and technology. Okay, thank you. You may start to introduce yourself.
I've already introduced myself, but I'm interested in the use of the term futurism. That was an Italian fascist art movement. Just getting back to that eugenics thing, you know?
Can you hear this? Yes. My name's Cameron Reilly. I'm the CEO of the podcast network, among others.
James Newton Thomas. I'm a kind of field roboticist, so I've got no idea why I'm doing it as social.
I don't think I'm needing this mic.
We need it for the recording.
Oh, I see. Okay. Right. Well, my name's Neville Holmes. I sort of invited myself on this, and I'm the last minute registrant for running candidate at this conference earlier on. In the background, I've been a patent examiner. I worked in computing for 30 years, starting in 1959. And I taught for 20 years, and now I'm retired living in Ballarat. The only other thing is that because of things I was writing about, these kind of social implications, 10 to 20 years ago, I got invited onto the editorial board of IEEE Computer Society's magazine Computer, which I've been running a column for the profession for the last 10 years or so, and my column very much on these sort of issues, and if any of you are interested, I'm quite happy to accept contributions to the column.
All right, look, I'll kick this off. I think the last point that was being made is very relevant about individuals, and what I want to say is that technology tends to empower individuals. And we can see that just in modern history. If you go back into the 50s, which was a long time before a lot of you, there was a whole series of waves of fads came out. The hula hoops, the frisbees, you all know what a frisbee is. And these were all the progeny of a company called Whammo, which was a guy called Muth, I believe, Merlin and Muth. And they, because they were empowered by marketing, the marketing period, they came out of the University of Southern California, but they managed to inculcate into the social psyche these fads. And of course, maybe we just want to take up fads, we're sort of attuned to take them. But nonetheless, the actual fads itself, what took place, what went into the society, what came from the individuals, came from those individuals. They said, we're going to take this thing, the hula hoop, which it pre-existed. It wasn't like they invented the thing, but they managed to make these massive populist fads that ran through the society. Now, in 1941, the Japanese Empire, with the entire Japanese fleet, attacked Pearl Harbor. In 2001, Osama bin Laden attacked the United States as well, and he did so with far greater loss of life than the Pearl Harbor attack, but he was empowered by modern technology, by international air travel, ATMs, mobile phones, etc. So my point is that until we get to a complete Big Brother state where you can observe and monitor and predict individuals, cultural trends will not be predictable because they can be generated at the level of the individual. That's where I start.
The example you gave was actually of a cultural trend that was predicted. Of the hula hoops and the frisbees. They were, they were something that was, produced by a company and said, okay, let's put this out in the mass market. We know that people are fattish. We can create a vicarious lifestyle through advertising where they're having fun, and everybody wants to have fun. And they all went out and bought the hula hoop and the frisbee, even though, as you pointed out, some of those things pre-existed. They did predict their own action. The point of empowerment is quite interesting insofar that, as you suggested, it can have very positive and negative implications. And one of the things which I neglected to mention in my presentation on the genetic engineering aspect, and this is some fairly old data from the early 1990s, When amniocentesis was introduced in India, it was primarily used for sex selection to basically determine your baby's sex before it was born. And it was introduced and it resulted in a significant spike in abortions, and 96% of those were female. This is despite the fact, of course, that women live longer, as we mentioned this morning. So, you know, that was a type of genetic engineering, and not a particularly positive one either.
I have no idea what any of that meant, but what I'm going to try and slightly change the subject, because I'm interested in what these gentlemen and yourselves all think about the talk that Lev just gave, the terrific talk. I mean, and not wanting to sort of get too far into the talk I'm going to give later on, but I've been interested in transhumanism and the Singularity for about 15 years, and I find today that still, when I talk to most people about it, they look at me like I've come out of the place where my arms were tied behind my back and they edge slowly away, maintaining eye contact. Just how people react to me just normally, but slightly enhanced when I bring up this stuff. I'm wondering what the rest of you think about the sort of promises that Lev was indicating that transhumanism offers, and how members of the general public react to that and why they react that way. You're talking about social formation as a result of these potential enhancements, and yet I still find 99% of people I talk to about these sorts of things shake their head and want to run away. It's still, they still find these sorts of things that I've always seen as, you know, natural conclusions that everyone would want to strive for. I find that 99% of people are absolutely terrified by that. Anyone want to enlighten me as to why that might be?
Cultural conservatism. People, I think there's a natural tendency to say, look, we're okay now, let's not change. And if you look at, when I was saying before about individuals changing culture, there are obviously other mechanisms. For instance, there are mechanisms whereby cultures will try and prevent change to themselves by things like restricting education. And that's done by fundamentalist cultures the world over. They say, no, we won't educate people, we won't educate women, and they don't educate women, the primary caregivers don't educate the children when they're growing up, so the next generation are fundamentalists and follow the same philosophic bent. That's not a negative, I mean, they might be right, but it's a way of entrenching a particular social norm. And fear, I think, is a fairly healthy reaction if you're in a healthy state already. To say, look, I'm okay. Why do we want to change? Why do we want to take a risk? Right? Why do we want to, say, force democracy on China when they're working pretty well? Everything's going up, 10% increase. Why change what is working? And so a lot of the fear you have when you come along and say, oh, look, it's all going to change now. We're going to have, look, the bandwidth of communication across a fibre optic is twice the bandwidth across the corpus callosum, which it is. So effectively, we can communicate between nodes in our entire country faster than our brain can talk to itself. Now, that's telling me something interesting. But the point is, people are saying, oh, look, it's good now. Why change it? Good now, why change it? So they're running away from their current pleasures, that's all. They're just saying, we like it as it is, let's not change. Let's not rock the boat. But unfortunately, of course, the boat's going to be rocked for them. Not much we can do about that. It is going to happen.
Yeah, but the problem that I have with that is that people say things are working now. I've got more than a vague suspicion, I've got an almost certainty that 99.9% of the world's population will tell you bloody well isn't working now. Right?
You're correct.
Yeah.
1% have the money.
The 0.1%.
They have the money and the voice. So they are here in this room, you guys, having this conference with the microphones, with the television commercials, iPads. So that's why they're the ones who are hurt, and that's why that negative voice. Sure, look, I'm sure that if you could go to deepest, darkest Africa, they'd say, bring it on. Bring on the water. Bring on the genetic engineered crop so I can have something to eat. I'm sure they'd say that, but if they knew what a genetic engineered crop was. But unfortunately, no. People who are empowered are again the ones who are already empowered by the technology, who are the 0.1%. So it's empathy that may bring those others over the line.
But what about things like life extension? I mean, I'm sure if any of you have had a chat with friends or family about the idea of significant life extension, you get the same response that I get as, no, I don't want that. I'm happy for my 65, 75, 85 years. I don't want to live any longer than that. Thank you very much. And I look at these people like, what the hell is wrong with you? Like, you're fundamentally disturbed. Like and people just look at me like I'm crazy. Yeah, yes, sir, up the back.
I think what you're referring to is when you talk about more of an incredulity, a failure to imagine on their behalf. I find exactly the same thing when I talk to people about transhumanism, like, oh, you're back away. But it's not so much that they like the status quo and they don't like what I'm saying. It's more that they are unbelieving of what I'm saying. Like, oh, never listen to you, that's ridiculous, it's not possible. That they're unaware of the trends in science, they're unaware of the research that's being done. It's more of a failure to understand what's going on now and extrapolate that. And also a failure of imagination. You say, I don't want to live to 100, I'm bored. It's like, well, in 100 years you'll find something new to do, I'm sure. So I think that it's not so much a happiness with the status quo, but rather an incredulity at the point of the report, a disbelief that that's even possible, and that such things would be beneficial.
That is a very good point, and it certainly does have a large degree of truth to it. Usually when you explain to people sort of like development of computer metrics over the past 50 years, then sometimes and then you start extending the graph, and people go, oh, and then you say, and this is, you reach the line, you say this is where the human brain is at. Then they start getting a bit worried. But part of it is also due to the fact of a failure of the great promises of technology as well. If you look at the sort of like the way that technology was being promoted, particularly amongst working class people in the 1950s, apparently the future, our future where we are now, was going to have all the robots doing the dirty work. Right? Where are they? I want my robots.
I have a Roomba at home, and I would like to say that promise has been at least partially fulfilled. Thank you, Rodney Brooks from Melbourne, wherever he may be today. Yeah, no, it does. It does. I like that. Yes.
Just a thought, what you were saying. My 80-year-old mother, we started talking about longevity. Her first question is, will she outlive her money? Because she can no longer earn money.
Yeah, look.
Looking at government pension, Canadian old age security, CPP, and whatever my late father left.
Increase the wage of 100, they imagine living to 100 as an old person, as a decrepit person unable to work again. And that may be true of people who are alive today, but as regeneration and rejuvenation technologies advance, or generation to the next generation, relatively healthily and able to work.
Do I need to repeat these questions? Who is recording this? Can they be heard?
I don't know, but it's probably going to repeat.
Possibly, yes. All right. Yeah, so some of the discussion is about this concern that people have when we talk about life extension, perhaps has more to do with them not really understanding what we're talking. They think, well, I'm going to be old, I'm going to be sick, or I'm going to run out of money, and so I don't want that. But I find that even when I take the time to explain to people, no, that's not what we're talking about. We're talking about being as healthy as you were when you were 21, optimal health, systems of economics being massively changed with nanofabricators, the whole deal. People still go, no, I don't want that. I think I'll be pretty much happy with my 85 years. I find that there's this very deep core belief that people have that we shouldn't live beyond our, 410.
It's written in the Bible.
310, whichever one. Yeah, it could be it. Yes.
What you're talking about when you're talking about longevity is actually death. And
as somebody who believes in cryonics, which is a way of trying to avoid death, I have come across this very often. They are basically being slided on because they don't want to know about it. And if you break through that thing, you get hostility. And the reason I can understand for that is that all of us at some stage have to admit that we were going to die. It terrifies the shit out of us. I'm sorry, but I can't think another way of saying it. And we come to some sort of an arrangement whereby we can accept and deal with our coming death. Now, when we're talking about longevity, when we're talking about cryonics, when we're talking about transhumanists, we are talking about the possibility of not having to face death, not the certainty of not being able to do it. This is not something I can go out and ask the doctor to give me a script for or buy in the supermarket, but hang on, if you do so, you may have a 20% chance of avoiding death. You are breaking up this wonderful mental shield we have, which protect us from having to actually daily face our own death. You're breaking it up for a slither of hope. And are you surprised that the response to that is even, I don't want to hear about it, or I'll kill you for saying that to me?
Comment on the panel about that.
I think also, thanks Martin, but I think also there's an element that people don't want to be associated with uncool people. And a lot of people who believe in longevity, immortality, look pretty uncool. If you take somebody
what
who's...
What can be cooler than cryonics? Minus 196.
If you take any one of these people and say, hey, look, there's a bus coming, they'll step out of the way. They won't stand there and let the bus in. But if you take, look, there's a really slow bus coming, right? It'll be here in 40 years or so. then they don't worry about it at that time. They think you're one of those strange people. It's not something that's in their immediate sphere. People think in a time horizon that's very short. Right? Then, of course, you have the problem when people do get a lot older and they are having serious health problems. They are feeling like they are a social burden on their children or on other people around them. You can understand that they're starting to think, oh, look, I wish I wasn't hurting my children. And so then you can start to see an acceptance of that bus coming towards them. You know, they're tired, they can't get out of the way as quickly as they could when they were young. And so they start to, you know, when they're older, accept that. But, look, I agree with you. You know that. I agree with you, and I agree with you. I think life is good. Right? Life is good. So let's have as much of it as we can.
I have a feeling of unreality about this, I've got to tell you, because you say people have a good life. Now, what people are these? I mean, it might be you and me, but you know, go down, look, I remember I was up in Sydney a little while ago, and I used to live there, and I was blown out of my mind by walking through near Central Station there, and there's homeless people late night, and homeless people over the place. In Ballarat, where I live now, you know, people are afraid to go out at night because of alcoholic violence and all that sort of thing. Okay, that's this country. What about Pakistan, Afghanistan, Iraq? This sort of thing. What are we talking about here? Are we not, if we're worrying about transhumanism, we are not worrying about anything that is real to any more than a very small fraction of the world's population.
It's very much a first world problem to be worrying about this sort of stuff. Like I worry about why I can't get faster speeds on my iPad sometimes. But, you know, I think that the sort of things that we're talking about offer the same sorts of benefits to these people living in these countries. I mean, I totally agree with you, Neville, that I look at the singularity and transhumanism as the only ticket out that we have as a species. The only way we're going to survive the next century is to pass through this barrier as quickly as possible. It may have some unintended negative side effects, but we'll let Bill Joy worry about those. But for most people on the planet who do live these very, very tough lives on, I think as Lev may have mentioned, the average income of less than $2 a day. I was in Nicaragua a couple of months ago and saw, the way that people were living there. It's dismal. We passing through this barrier offers, a way out for all of these people to lift them up. Let's not worry about animal uplifting. Let's get through the human uplifting, and then we'll do the animal uplifting. Yes, sir?
I'm not sure why you believe, these technological advancements are going to solve these social problems. For example, James mentioned the genetically engineered crops will eliminate human hunger. Why would you think that? We've already got enough food to feed everyone now.
I think, Dave,
Why is technology
you're making a point that the political economy is actually more important than necessarily than the technology.
Yeah.
Jeremy, you've had your hand up for a while.
Well, I'm sort of past that point, but that's how it takes back a little. I'm not sure that we're not making special pleading for the fact that people are not able to deal with these apparently transhuman technology. Isn't it true that any disruptive technology, whether it's definitionally, is unthinkable until it becomes banal? I mean, for instance, we have life extension now that twice as long as we did 100 years ago. There were periods when people believed it would never be possible to travel faster than 30 kilometres an hour. Or fly. We now have 500,000 people in the air at any one time. These
God give you wings.
become normal when they're demonstrable, I think. At the moment, they're science fiction, and that's not unreasonable to think that most people won't get that.
Sure.
Once they become part of their lives, some people will find it.
Psychically, technology is what is introduced. What are the new tools that are introduced in your life? Mentally, we do not perceive as being a new technology those things which existed through our childhood. We do not consider refrigerators and washing machines a new disruptive technology, but they certainly were when they were introduced. They made fairly significant changes to home life at that point in time. Getting back though, sorry, it was Margaret, is it? The existential look. People, the majority of people saw like a very challenged mentally by existential risks. The IEEE journal, which may be incredibly readable, does not sell more than New Idea, right? People have got a degree, they've got an anchoring of safety where such as these difficult topics are taken away from them, so it's less confronting. And of course, the way that on a cultural level, and I'm not a cultural theorist by any stretch of the imagination. The social sciences are my thing. 100 years ago, people died at home, right? We actually saw people being born and dying in the in the home. So these were very real things that people saw were a lot closer and a lot more connected to. People don't think about dying these days. They wait until the last 8 months of their life, and after their doctor tells them they've got a terminal cancer, and then they start running off and trying to complete the rest of their life that they didn't do. And I think we need a cultural shift on that level, so we actually stop paying attention to things which are really quite trivial and start dealing with existential conditions.
Can I ask further to that then? Do you think that extending all this technological progress to the conclusion of the transhumanist world, do you think it's going to be an exacerbation of the current conditions of social control and, say, manipulation by advertising and so forth, to a world of complete scientific dictatorship never thought possible? Or not, or the other way around, the individuality.
There was a time several years ago when I hoped, it was my hope that the introduction of mass communications technology rather than information technology would actually see that sort of change. I really thought that that the distinguishing feature between a communications technology and information technology was that whereas one gave a one-to-many relationship of information, the other one provided, many-to-many provided feedback, and therefore the quality of debate may actually increase. I'm not so sure about that anymore.
Well, without wanting to, again, preempt my talk for 4 o'clock this afternoon, which is pretty much what I'm going to be talking about, as somebody with an interest in political theory, I'm a firm believer that the elite will, when they start to take this stuff seriously, will try and subvert it or bend it to their own profit motives. And one of the things that we need to do as a community of people that are interested in seeing this come to pass is start a grassroots awareness education movement, do a lot more work on that. You know, technology is basically a tool, and, adding to what Lev said, I've been in the internet business since '94. I've been running a social media company since 2004. And in that period of time have seen what I hoped would be something that would lead to democratisation of the media and of communications, basically be subverted by venture capitalists who, and I've seen it's been a great disappointment to me where I see fellow internet media entrepreneurs take the $50 million investment from the venture capitalists, and all of a sudden their lofty ideals for the democratisation of media end up as them talking about Paris Hilton and selling the latest gadget. So, that, and I'll talk more about that, not to say I don't buy the latest gadget, Lev, but I use my gadget for the democratisation of media. And that's how I sleep at night. But, again, without wanting to preempt my talk this afternoon, I do see that, will be a natural phase that we're going to have to go through where these sorts of things will try to be subverted by the bourgeoisie, for want of a better term, and we need to fight for that.
Hugo.
Can I ask a follow-up? I think one of the major tasks of this community in the near future should be to educate Australian public. Australia's about 5 years behind the US. I think the journalists, your next step should be the journalists. Get them personally involved, get them motivated, and then they'll contact the media. I mean, these issues will affect everyone's life. But it's important.
Yeah, for the sake of the recording, Hugo is saying that we need to get the message out there to the Australian public and contact the journalists. My concern though, Hugo, and again, preempting my talk this afternoon, is that the corporate media does not want to spread this message. It runs completely counter to the interests of corporate media. So how we, and the government media, I mean, imagine what Mr. Conroy would be doing if we were on the verge of the Singularity, we'd have a Singularity filter. We have a battle to fight to get them on board. Well, I agree, and I think we need to find Margaret Mead's small group that we can bring into the fold. Yes, the gentleman, the only one of 4 of us in the room with grey hair. I feel like we're brothers.
One issue that hasn't been canvassed yet is common law. There's like post-communist structures and policies. It's not food, drug, it's not like imagination. It is something that's broken in our society, that is education. Despite broad special education, most of the populace is unlearned, ill-bred, poorly informed, and couldn't carry on a decent conversation with these topics.
I do. Your point is an extremely good one, and in fact I was going to bust in there a bit earlier. The problem with transhumanism is that humanism's got to be made to work before you think it's going to change humanism. Humanism is not working. Education, the word educare means to bring out into society. The one thing education does not do now is to bring people out into society. Why? Because they are being downgraded for what I believe are commercial purposes, because somebody who hasn't got a decent mind is going to take the advertiser's choice and not make one of their own. Right? I'm going to fix it because if you use our digital technology, at the basis of all this, it belongs to the teachers, but the teachers need the support of digital technology. Digital technology should be right from preschool, primary school in particular, which our present government fell down on their promise to focus on. What you do there is you support the teachers by using digital technology to apply drill and practice, good old-fashioned rote learning, which meant that when I was a kid, people left school at 14 and were literate in numerate. People leave university now and they are illiterate in numerate. No, honestly, I mean, I've taught engineering people who should be numerate at least, and they're not. Right? But it's the basic skills. Now, the basic skills are useless by themselves, and that's why I emphasise the teachers. The teachers, I don't know how the hell we train them in science. The teachers have got to use the basic skills which are being built up by drill and practice in developing social skills. Because what we don't have at the moment, why we have violence, alcoholism, drugs and all this sort of thing, is because you don't have a true society. Look, I'm successful, hands all over the place.
And by the way, for any of you who are interested in that subject, Dr. Peter Elliard, who's going to be speaking tomorrow night, who's a close friend of mine, that's one of his favourite topics as well, is about how we build more educated and socialised adult human beings. Marta, you just had to go. We'll get back to you in a second. Yes, sir.
There was also a couple of debates about this very issue. I just wanted to sort of raise 2 points here. I think you're very right, very correct on the idea of education. I think actually it's more fundamental than that. I think the main issue that we have is that we're no longer teaching people how to learn. I think we're just trying to teach them things, and that we're just completely ignoring the entire aspect, the entire point of learning, which is to learn how to learn new things from that. And that's one thing I definitely feel is sort of moving, speaking to a lot of people throughout university, throughout high school, it seems like they're missing the entire point as to why you're learning your times tables and then being given a calculator. It doesn't make sense. And the second thing I wanted to raise is what you were talking about before. I think the main problem, the main thing that needs to be changed in society is complacency. I think we're way too happy to just sit back and let everything sort of flow over us and sort of leave it to somebody else to deal with. And I think that many people just need to get more involved in it. We're just way too complacent in our society to get things done. We're just not taking enough steps. We're just saying we've done enough.
Good point. On your earlier comment, I'm going to just cite it as a very quick example. I imagine nearly everybody in this room at some stage has been taught about how to use a computer, right? The first computer manual I had, which was way back in the early 80s, was for the Apple II. There's probably a few fans of that machine around here. The first when you learn how to use a computer these days, what do they teach you? The applications, right? How to use Microsoft Word, okay? The first page of the Apple II computer book, which you got with the little box, was take the lid off. And it shows you, this is the processor, this is what it does, this is the memory, this is what that does, these are the I/O slots, this is what they do. Okay, put the lid back on, now we'll start using it. It actually, as you're saying, it taught you how to engage in a learning process by establishing some fundamentals, rather than actually saying, here is what you need to know because this is, what is going to get you, the position which we've decided you're supposed to do, and without actually providing the opportunity for the person to actually, or the, with the opportunity to actually learn and give a better grounding. And the grounding in the education system, I think, is something which needs to be emphasised, and in particular in relation to the notions being dealt with in the singularity.
Oh, look, I'm going to play devil's advocate here. Somebody's got to do it. This thing didn't have a user manual at all. Right? When you get these iPads, iPhones, no user manual. Apple have got it together. They realise that this is something that is part of me, is designed to interface me to the world. I don't want to have to spend time wondering what CPU it's got, wondering how this touch screen works. Look, I appreciate as much knowledge as you can is a good thing, but there's a hell of a lot to know out there now. Too much. It was okay 50 years ago, 100 years ago. You could have guys who knew everything. You have your polymaths, your Benjamin Franklin. They knew everything that was knowable. We can't do that now. We do not have the time to, we'd spend all our lives at uni, God forbid. So,
get back to the point about learning how to learn. The thing is, there's a hell of a lot to learn nowadays if you want to learn it all. But the important thing to understand, I think, is that learning is a social process, and that you learn from social interaction. It's no good telling somebody, oh, here's how you learn, because they don't learn. They only learn. It's the old fish, teach the person a fish or teach them to fish. And you do it by social interaction. And that's why I emphasised when I was talking about using computer-delivered drill and practice of various kinds. It's got enormous potential. That's got to be done by the primary school and parents in a social context. I'd like to say one other thing. I'm sorry about the hands here. I don't know if anybody saw the SVS program on, I think it's Norman Deutsch, The Brain That Changes Itself. Right? Hey, when I read that, I cried, because the point about that is, and what they found, this new word, look for it, neuroplasticity. We are, all of us, even us here, functioning at about 10% of our possibility, in various ways. Some of us not, some of us more than others. But the thing is that our brains are not, we put people in jail to punish them. Norman Deutsch shows us how we can fix them, rehabilitate them, and it's been done in isolated places around the world. The picture shows you how people can complete. There's one of the episodes in the book as well, has a woman who her vestibular system went kaput, and she had no life because she was out of her mind, giddy all the time. They used digital technology to wire up to a helmet with accelerometers, and 6 months later she didn't need the helmet and she had a sense of balance back, because the vestibular system was okay, but the connection between the vestibular system and the brain had gone out, but they were reformed by this experience. Now that's with somebody who's sick. Just imagine what this neuroplasticity can do to criminals, to autistic people. It has been done, but to ordinary people who have all this untapped potential. And you and I, we have huge amounts of untapped potential, and we can still realise it.
Just a couple of more questions, and can we please make them brief, because we've got heaps to go in forward.
I just wanted to make one point that I think is fundamental in understanding of what is going on and why we are unable to fix this despite having the technology and the understanding of doing it. And that is what you mentioned as also political economy. Good politics is incompatible with good governance. And the book to read there is called The Logic of Political Survival. And I very much believe, and maybe some comments from the panel there on this topic, is that, unless you get to this singularity in one shape or form that may have the potential to break through this situation, we are very much stuck with what we have, despite all the technological solutions that we have to this point. Some comments?
Look, I want you to, I don't think that the singularity is going to solve those problems. And I want to, at the end of my talk, I did talk about, bad scenarios. And I want you to think about a particularly bad political economy, and which wouldn't be, that gets applied to the singularity of the future. I want you to think about a complete corporate or pre-modern control over genetic engineering. Okay? I want you to think about those things. I want you to think about a truncated artificial intelligence, which is, subjected to political imperatives. I want you to think about Samsung developing its automated machine guns, automated assault rifles. Those, this is why political economy is such, you look at you look at your forces of production, what you can do, the potential, and then you look about how they're actually being used, and think about how bad it could be.
Yes, sir.
Sorry, also, just going back to the education thing, also taking the devil's advocate a bit further, sort of seems like people are talking about a very prescriptive approach to education, as in people should do this, people shall do that. I can sort of see that from the viewpoint of childhood education, but adult education, for most people, education is a purely economic decision. It's a cost-benefit analysis, because in education, learning is hard work. I mean, we're self-selecting here in the audience, the panel, people who learn recreationally, but most people don't get much recreation benefit from education. So I think maybe, yeah, that's the point.
The fact that they don't is a condemnation of education system.
And I mean, that was the only point I had to make on some of the stuff you were saying before, Neville, about the teachers using this technology. To what point do you feel that the education system is going to hamstring them in being able to take full advantage of this stuff? I'm just sceptical that the system's going to allow them, even if they want to.
Yeah, quite right. It's got to be done incrementally, obviously. And I don't know with the climate change who is going to have time to do it. In fact, I very much feel we won't. But the point is that with an uneducated population, then the politicians and the robber barons can do what the bloody hell they like. So you've got to sort of insinuate improvements in education to improve society itself, so that society starts to get back control of itself. Well, we ever had it? Yes, I think we did, back in the agricultural era. And prior to that. Yeah, and prior to that as well, indeed.
How we go for time?
Okay, it's time for pizza.